Hello and welcome to the Say It Sister podcast. I'm Lucy and
I'm Karen, and we're thrilled to have you here. Our paths crossed years ago on a shared journey of self-discovery, and what we found was an unshakable bond and a mutual desire to help others heal and live their very best lives.
For years we've had open, honest and courageous conversations, discussions that challenged us, lifted us and sometimes even brought us to tears. Now we want to share those conversations with you. We believe that by letting you into our world, you might find the courage to use your voice and say what really needs to be said in your own life.
Whether you're a woman seeking empowerment, a self-improvement enthusiast, or someone who craves thought-provoking dialogue, join us as we promise to bring you real, unfiltered conversations that encourage self-reflection and growth.
So join us as we explore, question and grow together. It's time to say it, sister.
Oh, welcome to 2025, to the month of the goddess. It's the time to connect to your true power as a woman, as a goddess, as somebody who has an energy inside of you that you can feel, someone who, connects to the moon, to the different cycles of life. And for you to feel that energy, we are going to be doing a 4-week segment where we'll dive deeper into the world of the feminine. And over the next month, we're going to reconnect you to your divine feminine, connecting you to your own inner goddess, and balancing the masculine and the feminine energy that lives within you and within every single woman. So let's begin. Lucy, what is goddess energy for you?
That's a big question. I think for me, it's this way of connecting to, I suppose, all of my strengths, and the goddess element being all of my feminine strengths, because over my whole life experience, I've had these strengths, but I've kind of pushed a lot of them away to survive in a corporate world or just keep pushing and thriving. And, anything that seemed feminine in a way seemed weak, pathetic, to be pushed aside or ignored. And so connecting with my goddess energy is absolutely about connecting with all that is feminine. And just bearing in mind that about 4,000 years ago, we started to shift away from goddesses. Because let's face it, any culture that you go around the world, you look at their history, you look at their architecture, their paintings and drawings and sculptures, you see gods and goddesses. And then it shifted to this solo, omnipresent spirit and it was always a male god that we should all follow. And let's face it, it was all focused around a man's world in terms of the way that these gods said that we should behave and we should live our lives. It was all very much from that male perspective. And bit by bit, the world of the goddesses became smaller and smaller until it became all a bit woo-woo or just a little bit of a fantasy story to be turned into a Disney cartoon. But there are certain goddesses which we've probably all heard of, whether it's from literature or whether it's from, like I say, the Disney films, some songs. It's in us. It's always been around us and we've just ignored it. And just off the top of my head, Athena is probably one of the most well-known. If you're a woman of my age, you'll know it from a poster shop, but she is so much more than that. And you've got, the Norse mythology is really taking forth. I suppose there's lots of Viking shows on at the moment, but people are reconnecting with Freya, the Hindu god of Kali. There are these household names, but most of us don't actually know what they mean. And to me, it's about connecting with their traits because each one has got its own traits. And it's about saying, well, who do I need to call in today? How can I connect with that energy within me? So, yeah, big question. How about you?
It's amazing, isn't it, when we look historically around our planet and see where these, goddesses live, from the Greeks to the Romans to the Egyptians, then you look at different religions and practices such as Hinduism and yoga and, also the pagan roots that we share, and so this feminine energy has always been present and always been around. And I feel like obviously things got distorted when Catholicism, Christianity, I suppose I should say, came in, because all of a sudden, you know, women had less of a focus, less of a priority. And, you know, there's so many manuscripts and testaments that, such as the Mary Magdalene testaments, that are very feminine, very pro women, very pro the feminine energy, and that's all been hidden. And I suppose these works are now starting to come out much more, and you can read books that are very, you know, pro the feminine. And I feel like it's really important as women that we seek out, you know, positive literature, positive places where the feminine is honored and not controlled. So for me, like, the goddess has been very much part of my journey. And I always connected to, like, Mother Mary, because I felt like there was this energy of this divine mother who was looking over me and protecting me. And I felt that from being a child. And she's still with me. And so because I've done a lot of traveling in my life, I would always, when I went to anywhere different, I would always find a church. It didn't have to be, it could be any type of church, to be honest. And I would go in and I would light a candle and say some prayers and ask for protection and whatever I was going for in my life. And I might write some things down. And I just felt this force around me. And when I did conceive Catalina, which was later on, I was 42, I'd been praying to her, you know, to become a mother myself for such a long time, pretty much, you know, please, you know, bring me someone where I can have a family and that kind of thing. So she was really, really symbolic for me. And then as I went into the work within the Akashic Record, which is ultimately channeling energy, channeling light, you know, it's being a light worker in the world is the best way I can describe it. She was my guide, you know, she was my Akashic guide. So that connection that I have with her, I feel like she, every morning I do some sort of like invoking energy work, and I call her in, and I call her into as my principal guide, and I call her into my body. And if I get lost or stuck on anything, I'll just say, you know, please help me. And magic happens. So she's a strong one for me. And then I've also got the yogic, you know, elements as well, because I was hugely into yoga for such a long time. And, you know, I did a lot of traveling there into sort of India and Bali, and would pick up, you know, iconic things about goddesses. So I was kind of researching this a long time ago. Yeah, there's so much I could say. There's, like, you know, there is one called, well, Kali is a big force in my life because she is about destruction and rebirth. And I feel that as women, we're constantly going through that cycle of even in the month, like, you know, where we are almost like burning things to the ground and we have our bleed, and then we come back out and we're kind of more maiden-like. So I love her because she's wild, she's destructive. She's not a pleaser, she's not a good girl, you know, she's got a tongue sticking out, she's bright blue, she's got a man's head like that's been cut off. She is like, you wouldn't mess with her. So she's been really powerful, and she's also the goddess of childbirth. So again, it's like, I feel like to be reborn, we have to go through this fire energy that, you know, it's like so destructive in a way, but actually, like the phoenix, we then rebirth, and then we come out and we are sort of almost remade in the new mold of who we are today, because we've got to let go and we've got to get rid of things. And, you know, anyone who's gone through something traumatic or a divorce will probably have had Kali by their side saying, come on, you can do this, you can get through it. Yeah. What about you? Who are your main ones?
Well, I was brought up without religion in my life, so I don't have any of those tendencies towards any Christian gods or goddesses or people in their scriptures. And so I guess I have wandered through the world looking for all kinds of symbols or role models or things to, like, take hold of me. And I am a complete balanced head heart kind of personality. And I've always looked more from this social scientist cultural way. And I guess I first started to understand about different cultures and different beings when I was about 16, 17, and I started reading the classics. And from there, you know, I've gone on to really connect with my more pagan roots. And so I think Athena, like I said, has always been with me. She's the one that I've always been drawn to, and I go back to time and time again. And she, of course, is the warrior woman. She is also the goddess of crafting, and also this fire and this passion, but she comes at it from a much more strategic thinking way. So rather than having the brute force that the male gods have, she absolutely comes at it from the long term, the more strategic. Let's plan this out, and that's definitely an energy that I've always felt connected to. I've never been somebody who's vengeful. But I've always, believed in this karma that, if we wait it out, we behave in a certain way, stay strong, hold your courage, that you will get your reward or your justice in time. And so whenever I'm, well, right by my front door, I have, I guess you'd call it an altar, but it's got a honey candle, which is one of her symbols. I've got a glass owl, which represents the wisdom. And I've got a little pot of little crocheted items that me and my children have made. So again, it represents all of those three elements of her. And I notice it every day, and especially when I light the candle, that's done with real intention about summoning in this energy of this strength, this warrior woman. Um, but I guess more recently, as I've been going through my own perimenopause journey, I've absolutely gone more towards this Mother Maiden crone style energy. And I think, well, for those that can see my on the video, I've got my tattoo there, which is my Hecate tattoo. And I was really attracted to her at the start of the year. And she is now been adopted as the goddess of witchcraft. But it was more than that before I realized that, because there's something about her which is about going inwards. It's about the mother maiden crone. She also represents the universe, the earth, and the sea. So all of the most powerful elements. So again, it was this like real power that she gave, but it's about going inwards. And anybody who's gone through or going through the menopause knows that it is very much an inward journey. And so she's definitely been with me. And I guess on the opposite side of that, we've got the Irish or the Celt goddess Brigit or Brig, who is very much about the Mother Earth. And I guess she's quite linked to Freya, where it's about, fertility. It's about the spring, the sunshine, the Mother Earth. It's almost like the opposite of Hecate. But also more recently, I've got to know the Cailleach, which is very much, she is the Queen of Winter, and actually solstice is her day. And she is very much about the moon energy. And again, this is this, the sun, the day is masculine energy, and the moon is feminine energy. So I'm feeling like I'm getting this real balance within me. So yes, they are goddesses, but they're definitely more of a masculine version that I need within me.
Yeah.
Um, and I've got to say, I love the Cailleach because she's the old hag.
Yeah,
She's
I am a
there.
big fan of the elder grandma energies, I call it, the crone
Yes.
energy. Because it's like, you get to that point, you just want to cut through the chase and you just want to say the
Yeah.
things that you want to say. And I feel like for me, there's a beauty in the goddess energy when it comes to like power and fire, and when we can access that, because we need to cut to the chase. We need to sometimes use that sword of truth with our words, and then there's the more gentle and soft side, which is like the love and the nurture side. And I feel like as women, it's really important that we can have, energies that reflect both things. Otherwise, we're either too soft and too meek, or we're too, overpowering. And, and I don't want to get into like I'm too much of this and not enough of that, because that's just too heady for me. But there is something about this completion of they're both feminine, but there's like more of a like outgoing, you could say masculine side, versus the much more yielding feminine. And we want both because we need both in this world. We don't live in the way we used to, so we have to be able to put on our armor and be Athena some days. It's as simple as that. And then other days we're like, okay, I'm really tired, this armor's heavy and I'm going to take it off. So I love that idea of completeness and joining together within ourselves. And for anyone listening, there are 17,000 goddesses in our world across the globe, that doing many different things, have many different purposes. And so, I always say to people, go find yours.
Yes.
investigate, read. You can even just close your eyes and tune in and just ask for what you need right now, and you will get some kind of assistance if you are willing to sort of sit and hold space for that, and investigate it. The other thing to say is that every woman is a goddess, and inside her, she has her own goddess energy and power. So there's times in our lives when we want to be sort of, calling in and getting that energy and that, purpose inside of us. And it might come from outside. And then there are other times where it's like, actually, I'm cultivating this bonfire inside me today. And you can call on help from the outside as well. You don't have to choose one or the other. But I feel like this was a major thing for me, because when I first went off on my sort of divine feminine journey, I didn't know what the divine feminine was. But I was doing my CTI leadership training, and the head leader of that, Sam House, said to me, "You're here to evoke the divine feminine." And I just thought, I have no idea what he's talking about. That was 2015. So I went home and Googled it, like you do, and it was like, oh yeah, this does sound like me, because I am a spiritual person, and I have got this sort of like white energy, and it kind of made sense, but I still didn't really understand it fully because there wasn't much out there that talked about it. I mean, now you've got loads of things where you can, get a book and go, oh yeah, okay, someone's going to explain it to me who's an expert. But then there wasn't much out there. So, I created a workshop called Goddess Power, which was really about helping women connect to their inner goddess. And it was incredible. And we were connecting into the longings and the heart space and desire and all the juicy stuff. But what was fascinating was that as soon as we opened up into that energy of like what we want inside ourselves, the taboos came out. Well, I couldn't possibly do that. That's definitely not, what will people think? What will my husband think? What will my wife think? What will, my parents think? How will my child feel about it? It's like, what will society say? Will I lose my job if I, go off and do something that I, feels like a bit too woo? So all of that then started to come out, which was like, brilliant. Let's go into that. Let's take the space and let's look at these taboos. Where are they coming from? Are they yours? What are they serving? Are they actually doing anything for you? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? And you kind of go on this whole journey of going, when things are clear, black and white on paper, you can start to go, this doesn't even belong to me. This is society. This is my parents speaking to me now. And from that place, we get clear on who we are, and then we start to evoke the power of the goddess to help each woman say, this is who I am, this is what I want, and I'm going for it. And I'm doing it from a place of power and from femininity, because we've really got to believe that it's safe to be feminine and powerful. Because if we don't believe that it's safe for us to do that, I feel like we're just going to put out our own fire on the inside. And so for me, this goddess energy is very much around get clear, get clean in yourself, find that passion, and then go for it and know that you are worthy and that you are enough. When did you first connect to yours?
I think when I really started playing with it and almost not being afraid was after the birth of my first child. I went into a crystal shop and I was actually looking for something like a little angel statue or something like that to put by her cot, just so that, some kind of protection. And I picked up these oracle cards, and I hadn't done I'd done tarot many, many years before, but I hadn't really connected with anything since. And I picked them up. I was drawn to them, but they had a picture on the front, which no, sorry, a picture on the back of the card, Isabella, and the other one as Rosa, and that was the name that I'd just given my daughter, Isabella Rose. And then when I flipped it over and seen who the author and the artist was, it was Dr. Doreen something or another, and that is my mother's name. So I'm like, whoa, I don't know what this is all about, but there's too many connections on here. I'm going to buy them. And actually, then over many years, they were the cards that I would use. And there were there were masculine ones, feminine, so gods and goddesses. There were some Christian ones, but there were also ones from all around the world. And so as I started drawing them, I started really understanding and connecting with the energy of each one. And so for any of the skeptics who aren't woo-woo, aren't spiritual, um, you can use these cards as an interpretation. So whichever card you draw, you can look at it and say, right, what is it that I want to manifest today? Or what part of me wants to come out? And it's kind of like an affirmation. And so I would get Mystique coming quite a lot. And that was like this black charging horse.
I
And I
have
would
the
also
same
get
cards.
Athena.
Just
Oh, no,
remembering.
oh yeah, they're obviously in all the shops back then. But that was my first entrance in, and but I haven't used them for a long, long time now. But whenever I am doing some intention, I will just go and try and find the one. So like if I really want to bring Athena's energy and that strength, and also my creativity, because when I'm doing my crochet, I'll put her on the side, and it does it. Something changes. So again, for the skeptics, it may just be that I'm focusing on that part of me that I want to bring out. For those who are the more spiritual, maybe I am channeling the goddess within me. I don't really care. All I know is something positive is happening to me. And so, yeah, I constantly in contact and I'm noticing things. So again, if I'm seeing lots of a certain thing or I'm noticing a lot of something, I mentioned to you a few weeks ago that Lilith kept coming up to me, whether it was on TikTok or whether it came up in an article or something I was reading. I was like, she's signaling to me something there. And so I went away and I researched. I'm like, I see that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So it's just made me much more attuned with what's going on with myself.
And it's those synchronistic moments. I feel like when we connect to that, actually, we are literally following the signs and the symbols, and it takes us to places. So we don't necessarily know when we first see something. It's like we're drawn to something. There's some sort of energy that's sort of taking us in that direction. When you go into something and you think, whether it's a shop to find a crystal or whatever it might be, it could be that you get pulled towards a temple or a church or nature. You follow it and then you find something, and and that could be something inside yourself as well. Like you find something inside yourself, but you find something and then you're like, wow, that's quite amazing. And it kind of changes you on the inside for a little while. If you stay open, don't close it off there, stay open. And each day be like, where will I get led today? Like there's an openness to it. And you'll start to see the same messages coming back time and time again. And, I'm just looking for one of my little statues, but this is one of mine, and it's Sarasvati, and she is the goddess of the arts, and she's riding a swan, and it's really quite fabulous. And she's playing, she's got all these different hands, and as women we need many hands, don't we? And she's playing this like it's a lute, and again, music, celebration, being transported, and she has appeared to me all over the world until eventually one day I said, I was in Bali and I was like, I'm going to get something and take that back. And she sits on my desk because creativity is such an important force for me. And when I think about feminine, I think about creativity. I think about the right side of the brain. I think about visualization, which is in its sense magic, and we have languages today where we talk about things like manifestation, but that was like really, really like so incredibly woo, visualization so incredibly woo, but now
So
it's much
normal
more
now.
mainstream and people are
Yeah.
going, there's something in this stuff. If I can see something in my mind's eye, I can go into that creative part of my brain very deliberately. I can then put that on paper, whether that's an image, some words, a mind map, whatever. There's an energy, it's actually being born out of me. And then if I return to it and keep going and then seeing what else I can see around me in the field, whether it's a white feather or a little stone or, a beautiful flower or whatever it might be, and follow those signs, your life is changing on the outside, not just on the inside. And I did my first visual board when I was in my 20s, and it's changed my life. And it continues to change my life. And every year I do it, and every year I am amazed that it works. I'm still like, and I'm now 48. So it's like over 25 years I've been doing this. And I'm still like, oh my God, that's amazing. So
It is phenomenal. And the number of things that I've had on my vision boards over the years, and it might not come into fruition that year, but then when you look back over the years, you're like, oh my God, I achieved that, or that happened. And I just want to take a step back to talk about some of those taboos that you mentioned, because when I was about 19 or 20, so again, remembering that this is the ladette era of our history, where it was all about how women had to be masculine, to be like the boys, to get ahead. And me and my best friend, and her heritage is from Goa in India. She's very connected with that side of her culture. And but we decided to do something that kind of met in the middle, and we did belly dancing. And we went to a night class in the local, I don't remember where it was, but we did that every week. And everybody mocked us and laughed at us, but we carried on doing it because we felt so divinely feminine while we were doing it, because I mean, we were a lot younger. We were, like I said, in our late teens, early 20s. So our bodies would probably never been in better shape. But we were there with with our tummies showing, shaking our boobies around, and absolutely feeling completely free and accentuating. And we never danced out in public. It was deeply for us. And it was that side of, whether it is through dancing or through cooking and eating sensuously and really devouring the food, or getting involved in music or poetry, um, even creative, like whether it is your knitting or whether you're into embroidery, whatever your thing is, it's about untapping something that's really deeply within you, and what works for you will work very differently for somebody else. And so I would just suggest, go and try some stuff. If salsa or the tango is calling you, go and have a play and just notice how different you feel within yourself. It was a moment that stayed with me forever, and it unlocked that, almost like this Venus energy of that love and power and desire and sexuality, which, let's face it, you're either the Virgin Mary or you're Mary Magdalene. And this was saying, no, I'm me in all of my pure feminine glory.
And it's sensuality. And I feel like as women, moving our bodies, I mean, I always, in any of my, workshops, there's segments that's body movement segments that is to music and, free dance and whatever it looks like for that person. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, a little bit nervous at first. Like, we don't tend to like to do it to begin with. But then once we get into our bodies, it's like, it's such a liberation point. And it's not that hard for us to do, but we've got to overcome that part of us that says, is anyone looking at me? Do I look like an idiot? Oh God, it feels a bit strange because we're so not used to it. And this embodiment piece from within, it's almost like, when I met my husband on New Year's Eve, I went to like an all-day dance thing. It was so incredibly uncomfortable, even for me, and I'm quite open. And I didn't know anybody there. And I remember going in and thinking, oh my God, this feels like torture. And it was quite, it was quite torturous to start with. Probably for a good half an hour, I was like, so in my head, so uncomfortable, don't want to be here. What if I just sneak out the back door and no one really notice? And I kind of gone for something, but I didn't know what I was going for, but I knew I needed to release. And so this thing went on and on and on and on and on. It was like, it might have been 4 hours of dancing, but I literally laughed in there. I cried in there. I felt this huge release come out of me. So I knew I'd kind of got what I wanted, but I couldn't name what it was. And that night I ended up going out, surprisingly, bumped into who's now my husband. And I said to him the other day, I am 100% convinced that if I had not gone to that dance thing, the 5 rhythms, and gone through the torture of that and then come out the other side, that we would never have fully connected that night. Maybe we'd have met later because I think we were meant to be together, but it was like something had to come through my body and come out of me. And I am that kind of person that if I don't connect to my body, I'm not fully embodied, and therefore I'm in my head, and my brain is my brain. I'm an overthinker, so I need to do that for myself, and I don't do it enough. And yet when I do, I'm like, give me more, it's so important for all of us, because we spend too much time sitting, as we know, and movement is life. So thank you for sharing that, because it's just reminded me of something that was important for me, that I think you go into the goddess energy. You're not going to be sat at your computer screen if you're in goddess energy. You're going to be out doing
No.
stuff. It's as simple as that, whatever it looks like for you, because you find your places. But I think a little bit of uncomfortableness, it doesn't last long. But actually, when you come out the other side, it is so liberating. And just like, I still feel proud of myself for doing that whole day of dancing because, yeah, it did something for me.
So over the next month, we're going to be journeying on into how women can connect with more of their divine feminine, or and some practices and some approaches. And I just wanted to share a couple of things, and then I'll ask you about some of your little tips that people can almost get ready or start preparing themselves for the journey that we're going to go on. And my first gift, or the thing that I would like you to, the listeners to start tuning in to, is notice those coincidences. Now, I remember being in my geography class when I was at high school, and there was a poster on the wall, and it stuck in my mind. But it was the poster said something like, "Notice the coincidences. They are God's message that something is there for you." And again, I'm not religious, so therefore I was like, okay, but it stuck with me. And then a few years later, I read the huge book that was around at the time called The Celestine Prophecy, and the first prophecy was notice the coincidences. And so I have spent my whole life believing in coincidences and tuning in and just noticing. So that's what I first invite you to all do. Just notice. If a thought comes into your head, and then whether it is a feather falls on the floor, or you were thinking of somebody and then suddenly they phone you, or you bump into them in the street, all of these little coincidences that go on, it's a message for you to either connect with them or just venture in and get curious of what's there. So that would be my first tip. And then, if you're like me, you love stationery. So this is your permission to go buy your January journal, whether it's a diary, a journal, just a beautiful book, and start the daily practice of just whether it's recording your coincidences, or maybe you've heard a song on the radio that suddenly has different meaning for you. Whatever the thing is that is inspiring you, just jot it down and just start getting into that kind of practice. And then maybe as we go through this along the journey, we can then start exploring, which goddesses might connect with that and whether they feel right for you. So that's my gift to you to start you off. What about you, Karen? What tips have you got? Where would you start?
Start through the power of reading or watching. So, you can get oracle cards or get a book. There's so many good books out there now around goddesses. Just have something that you can open up and you can dive into that's going to open up the space and see where you get drawn, like where you go with it, because there'll be things that will stand out. I don't know about you, but if I have a good book, I get a pen and a piece of paper, I get a pen and I'll just underline. I mean, my books are literally, I've got notes all over them. If there's no notes in the book, it's not done anything for me, because I want to sort of say, sometimes I'll even type them into my phone, little lines that have stood out for me and I've gone, that was really powerful, because I don't want to forget it. So that's a great way of doing it. Like, use your books and make them like a manual for yourself. I have a good energy guide, which is all around the divine feminine. So if anyone's listening to this and going, well, I don't really want to go buy a book and I don't want to spend money on oracle cards, you can download that, and it's all about the divine feminine, and it's about the daily rituals, the things that you can do to raise your energy, to rise your energy, and to keep you in the feminine. So that's a really great thing, and that's free. So I would recommend that people go find that. But ultimately, we live in a world where we can get access to information through our phones all the time. So, dive in, see what stands out. That's probably enough for now. And with what you're saying, I feel like it's just about taking that first step, whatever it is,
Yeah.
take a step. Yeah.
And I also just want to honor that we also have the masculine energy within us. So this isn't about diminishing the masculine or knocking it or saying that it's no good for us, because actually we are yin yang, we are the light and dark, we are the masculine and feminine. So it's a journey to explore parts of you that you haven't already explored, and to bring forth. And that is the journey that we're going to go on over the next few weeks. So this was a little introduction, I guess. And like I said, over the next few weeks, we're going to dive in and be a lot more practical about things that you can do, what the meaning of it is, some stories, maybe some war stories in there, to help bring it to life for you. But our wish for you this year and all the years beyond is to really connect with that fullest expression of who you are. And as we said in our very first episode, you know, you don't have to go out and say it, sister, to the whole wide world. Sometimes it's just saying it to yourself and acknowledging it for yourself. And that's the journey that we want to support you on over the next weeks and hopefully years ahead of you. So can't wait to speak to you next week and tune in. And yeah, blessings to you all. Take care. So thanks for listening, and we can't wait to welcome you next time.
Until then, use your voice, journal, speak or sing out loud. However you do it, we hope you join us in
Saying It Sister.